What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Producing in a Pandemic, where we talk about tools and resources for artists and creatives. I'm your host, William Thompson, and in today's episode, I'm excited to present part two of my conversation with my friend, my brother, recording artist, Tony A. We already had an amazing conversation just talking about some of his background and his upbringing in terms of how he came to be the artist that he is today. And we're just going to go and dive into part two of this great interview, this great conversation that we had. So let's go ahead and tune in to part two of Artist Talk.
I spoke of my training of the industry in general during that time, and it was not easy. I had a lot of heartbreaks. I had a lot of things go bad. I had a whole album lost, which was crazy. Probably my favorite album that I did as a gospel artist, and like the whole album is like held by Sony somewhere in the archives. Wow. Never to return to me. But it's my favorite album. And you know, I just
was that the second album?
Yeah, that was the second album, Revolution.
That's why I can't find it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I just was like, maybe pulled it down. You know, you transitioned to a different genre. That's what I thought. But wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I do want to know, first and foremost, were there any lessons that you learned during those first couple of seasons as you were, of course, from Voices of Praise, but more so like kind of breaking into being an independent artist? Were there any lessons that you learned from that you would want other people, like if you were mentoring somebody, if you were doing any kind of consultation or anything like that, what would you want like them to be aware of and to be careful of?
I would say be careful of people who will make you think that this opportunity is the only opportunity. A lot of the mistakes that I made were because I got freaked out by somebody saying, if you don't take advantage of this, you won't get this shot again. And I was kind of like, I just did whatever it was that they asked. And 9 times out of 10, not only was that not a great opportunity, but I found a better opportunity later once I was better educated and more confident in what I brought to the table. Also, like as a artist, and specifically for myself as a singer-songwriter, if you don't come with like a background in the production side or the management side, or you don't know the industry stuff, like open your mouth, like communicate, don't let it go. Like, you know what feels right and what doesn't. I did my first album. I got all the beats made for $500. And in hindsight, looking at it now, that was too much for it because the beats weren't fully made. They were rushed. There were no drums or percussion tracks on any of it. So my first album, if it's not like a fake synth beat, which in gospel is not as necessary, I didn't get to hear like the full potential of a lot of my songs, to the point where after that album started getting popular and actually started getting like awards and stuff, the producer reached out to me like trying to get me to redo it. And by that time I had moved on to my next project and different things like that. And I realized I had still got what I needed out of it. And they were just trying to get what they could out of me because they didn't take me seriously. And that's the other thing. Be prepared for people to not take you seriously at the start. It can be very discouraging and you can want to quit and give up. People are going to treat you bad. They are going to scoff at your ideas. They are going to, hesitate at your vision and the things that you say you're going to do. But the proof is in the pudding. Like, the best feeling is once you've done it and you get those messages like, wow, you said you were going to do it and you did, or that's really great. And like, some people get thrown off by people responding to them with that surprise. But I'm like, no, thanks. I'm glad I could surprise you because I knew I could do it and you just didn't know. So
yeah. And I consider myself, I count myself blessed to have been able to be a part of your journey, be a part of your team at that time. during Breaking Free in particular. I wasn't really, I kind of branched off to start my own artistry after that. But um, I remember, being in the studio with you. Like I said, it was really all happenstance because I was just trying to be the drummer, y'all. And then next thing I know, I'm singing background vocals on an album. Um, but um it was just everything from doing the first Calling Out to You single. And I'm shamelessly plugging here, guys, so y'all can go ahead and check his music out. But um it was an eye-opening experience. And I gotta say that I personally am thankful because I've been able to avoid certain pitfalls, having seen them and witnessed them. Just saying, oh, okay, so this is what you want to avoid when working with a producer. And of course, I got my own pitfalls that I've gone through, and stuff like that. But that's why like avenues like this podcast exist, because we've gone through the pitfalls, we've gone through the struggles, and we don't want anyone else to go through those same struggles. So learn from our mistakes, learn from, the bad business decisions, learn from the times. I'm convinced that every independent artist has a time where they got burned by a producer.
Absolutely.
I'm wholeheartedly convinced. So learn from those experiences, so that you don't have to have them yourself. Let's I was about to see, I was about to get churchy. I was about to say, break the generational curse of getting burned by producers. But just everything in terms of what to look for in a recording environment, what to bring to a recording environment. That was the first time that I heard, oh, okay, it would have been better if we had the stems, the multi tracks, for that. I was like, okay, so I know now, when it's when it's time for me to go into the studio to have the stems with me, to have a better mix, have better control, and all that stuff. That's a better way to go. They can do the 2-track mixing, but it's not the same.
Not the
Um,
same at all. And like, who
so,
knew? Think of all the people who just go and like lease a beat and like
mm-hmm.
record a track and then send it out, and they are wondering why it's not getting played first. I literally remember the first place that wouldn't play my song. They were like, "Yeah, it's not balanced well. It's not mixed well. It's not this. It's not that." And it was just like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'll just like, I paid the money for it, and it sounds way better than it did in my house.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So like, but you got to go through all that. And like, every artist thinks that they're like removed from that. Like, oh, that's not going to be me. It's going to be you. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and accept it and like get through. Like, just like you said, every artist who is an artist has run
Mm-hmm.
into at least one of these problems, because it's like, it's job hazards, right? So it's like a
Yeah.
part of the field. So it's just like, I think that's another thing. Like, don't try to work so hard to avoid everything. Just focus more on being more intelligent and better with your responsiveness to those moments when they happen, because they will happen. There's no way to avoid it. If you don't know, you don't know. But the second that you find out you don't know, like, you're in control of your career.
Yeah, yeah. Especially as an independent artist, when you're, I was just watching a video with Lecrae, and he talked about why he left Columbia Records, and one of the things he was talking about is like, he couldn't control when his music was being released and stuff like that. Whereas when he had his independent label, he could, I think it was actually, he released something during the pandemic as a response to like certain social things that were happening. He was like, we got it recorded, mixed, and released in like 3 days. And
Yeah.
it's like, as an independent artist, you have that freedom, you have that
Yeah.
flexibility. Where so I definitely, definitely ownership is really a big thing. You have to take ownership, not just from a financial standpoint, but also from an accountability standpoint. Like, at the end of the day, you as the artist are responsible for the sound that comes out.
Yeah.
You are the one that's responsible for the sound that comes out, and that sound is representative of who you are. And unless you so happen to be in a situation where Sony takes your album off the shelf, your stuff is gonna be there, at least for as long as you want it. So Yeah, that's all really, really, really good points there. Um, so going through the journey, we're getting closer and closer to the present. You had The Art of Me, which, well, first and foremost, let me say, Anthony Avery and Eclectic was a short season, at least in comparison to some of these other ones. It was a short season. You transitioned from Anthony Avery and Eclectic to Anthony Avery. The
Yes.
album was released as Anthony Avery.
Yep.
Starting with uh Breaking Free. Was Calling Out to You just Anthony Avery as well?
Yep. Well,
Okay.
I guess it was, we listed it. We ended up listing it as Anthony Avery, but that really was, I guess, technically like that was Anthony Avery and Eclectic.
Okay. Yeah. It definitely had the feeling like that's who the team was. But I remember, I still have the shirt. It doesn't fit me anymore, but I saw the shirt from the Breaking Free release. So Breaking Free was really Anthony Avery stepping out into his own as an artist, and had some great songs that were written on there. The Great I Am. There's one song that you did with Marcina. I think she produced it.
Oh, Praise Him in the Sunshine.
Yes, Praise Him in the Sun. That's my jam.
That's
That's
one
my
of my
jam. I,
favorites.
I, I literally, I just bop my head every time I listen to that one.
That's legitimately one of my favorites.
Yeah. And the I don't actually. I just remembered. I did get the chance to. I did get to write music for one of the
I was about to
songs.
say we had this successful
I'm over
song.
here giving props to other people. Take credit where credit is due.
Like,
But even that, like I said, that's part of why I was like, I gotta have you on here, because when it comes to like my adult music journey, you were such a key part of that for such a long time. So even the fact that my first credits as a singer, as a musician, as any type of contributor to music production was with your stuff. I'm forever grateful for that.
yeah, I'm
Um,
grateful for you. They listen. Walk with Me still gets played
mhm,
places. Like
that's awesome.
literally, I still get messages from people who are like, I listen to Walk with Me every day. It's my favorite song on the album. It's actually uh it's my father's favorite track on the entire album.
Wow.
It's cool going full circle, and I'm the same way. Like I appreciate all those people that I came into connection with. The same thing, like just being a hungry artist and being like, please help.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's how, some of those connections are made. So you transition, you did Breaking Free, you did what I guess I'll call the Lost album. And then The Art of Me was the next album after that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so yeah, we did after Revelation. I was really scarred, and so like I still had the music up because I did a visual album for that I worked really
Mhm.
hard on. It was really cool, and that's is still up. So if you want to hear
Mhm.
Revelation, go to YouTube. It's
By
still on it.
Revelation.
Yes, it's still, you got to watch the visuals to go with it, but the
Mhm.
entire album is up there. But it was a really, like, that was my first time getting burned by the industry, and I thought I wasn't
Mm.
going to recover. I thought I was going to give up, and then that's when The Art of Me hit me, and it was just like, okay, I can still do this. And for that one, I really wanted to show my growth and maturity just during my time. And I didn't know it was going to end up being kind of my swan song to gospel music, but
Mhm.
like in hindsight, I think it was a beautiful tribute to my time as a gospel artist.
Yes. So that concluded um that season, and like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Tony A was born. I remember when I saw that name, I was like, it's like, who Harper, who this? Who this? New phone, who this?
Exactly.
Um so Tony A, like, tell us more about who Tony A is. What is the difference between Tony A and Anthony Avery from an artist standpoint?
From an artist standpoint, I think that Tony A is just closer to who I am. And like, even on a base level, like, if people meet and know me, then they know that I go by Tony, not Anthony. Like,
Mhm.
if you call me Anthony, that's like professional setting. Yes, of course, that's my name. No issue with my name. But if you know me, then you know Tony. And so one of the first things that I was thinking about, I was like, if I'm going to rebrand myself, then let me actually be myself. So it wasn't so much of a rebrand as it was like a like just like accept what your brand is and be that. And so Tony A is 100% true to me. I feel like anybody who hears or sees anything that Tony A does, it like how you were saying, like the songs, if you listen to them, were kind of making sense in the music and the things that I was doing. Now I feel like everything that I do makes sense. Like
Mm.
it, and it doesn't feel like work because it's just an extension of me.
Yeah, yeah, an expression of
Yeah,
who you are.
like
Yeah, like,
in its truest form. And I wrote it out specifically because
mhm.
even the Tony A, the A being me wanting to still highlight my last name because my last name is super important to me, but also wanting me to be excited. I wanted to be excited about my artistry. So I
Mhm.
put an exclamation point at the end of the A because I was
Mhm.
just like, I want to be excited every time I say my name, and I want people to be excited every time they say my name. So even if you don't like me, because grammar matters, folks,
Right.
you got no choice but to be excited when you say my name. And
Yeah.
like even just the little things like that. Like I'm an energy person, so like I think I love the way that my name automatically fuels me to do
Mhm.
what I'm going to do. Like I always think that's cool. Like to now we're at the point where like people are literally branding stuff as like Tony A. Like they're like, oh yeah, it's not a Tony A project if Tony's not Tonying, and it's like cool. I'm glad y'all get my weirdness.
Yeah, I hear you. In terms of the energy, the excitement, that definitely is something that you are about as an artist, as a performer in general, because you perform in many different ways. For those who don't know, in addition to Voices of Praise and Tony being my brother through that, my brother in Christ, he is also my fraternal brother through Choir Sci-Fi National Music Society Incorporated. So we I was blessed to be not only his first one of his first pledges, but also his number as well. So we both share the number 6 as our line numbers. So we just have multiple ways that we bond, the layers, the
You're
layers,
right,
if you will.
like an
Uh,
onion.
yes, I think of that Shrek line. Ogres are like layers. Um, but yeah, no, even seeing in that, in those settings, like y'all did Hamilton. We'll probably touch on that as well in terms of stuff that you've been doing recently. But y'all did the Hamilton production. And back when I was, still a member up in the Baltimore chapter, the Soulful and Sophisticated Baltimore chapter, we did so many different shows, and that energy came through. It really is very indicative in terms of the type of performer that you are. There's nothing stale about you.
Mm,
The fact that you, even in your gospel music, even the fact that you have these visuals, and you've continued to do that. You have the music videos for, excuse me, your first Tony A album as well. That really just kind of, it all, like I said, it all just makes sense.
yeah.
um and personally, I definitely feel like you've really kind of tapped into who you are
Mhm.
artistically. And when I see the stuff that's coming out, when I hear the stuff that you're doing, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm not surprised by it. There's some people that you see them doing something, and it's just like, who told them that it was okay for them to do that? And it's not from like a point of ridicule. It's just, I think it's important for everyone to authentically express themselves,
Yeah.
and not to express themselves in the way that they think people will receive them, not to express themselves in the way that um I don't know, they feel pressured to try and present themselves, but to be authentic in their expression. It's really important. That your music be an honest expression of who you are.
Yeah.
And I think That is what we're seeing. I don't think I'm not saying that the other songs weren't an honest expression. I think it was just a different side of you.
Right. I mean, it's like being a kid in like elementary and middle school and high school. Like you feel like you're being your true self, yeah, right? And to an extent, you are, because in that environment, you are being true to yourself,
Yeah.
but you're true to yourself within the boundaries that are placed there. And I think
Yes.
the best thing that happened from me becoming Tony A was I used to always say music has no limits, but I was constantly limiting my expression and limiting what I did musically because I wanted to fit in, or because I wanted to not offend, or because I was worried about how it would be perceived.
Mhm.
And now, like, I couldn't care less. Like,
Mhm.
if like it makes you comfortable, or if it makes you uncomfortable, great. Like that means that I'm introducing you to something, and like doing it in a way you can also polish yourself better. It's like you can't polish a dress shoe with, like sneaker polish or
Yeah.
sneaker shine or something like that. Like, yeah, in theory you have the right concept, but you're using the wrong product and ingredient. And
Mhm.
Tony A is more than just spiritual, of course. Like I love God and stuff like that, but I've also love Broadway. I'm also a huge anime nerd and gamer geek. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I
Mhm.
love performers of the days, from the Janets, the Michaels, the Britneys, to the Beyonces, of course. We know I'm part of the Beehive. Like, and by being Tony A, I can be all of those things. I can be smart. I can be thoughtful. I can be sexy. I can be playful. I can be wrong. I can be negative. I can explore all those different thoughts. I had something to say, and I needed a platform to really say it without being stopped. And it's crazy. I've gotten so much more exposure and so much more so many more opportunities have happened for me because of that, like just unapologetically being myself.
Yeah, and I think I gotta say, I really admire how you've been able to successfully pivot. Because some people, I'll say it like this. I know some people that, like we see a lot of the singers like, oh, I grew up in church, but then when I got out, I was like, I rebelled and started doing R&B or something like that. From your Whitney Houston's to, she's just the top example. But even, thinking about people like Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, and all of these other artists that, have come up, at least during our upbringing. We got new generation of R&B artists out.
Right. It's a little different now.
Yeah, it is. It's different now, but especially the ones that were coming up, up until, I would say, probably up until the 90s.
Yeah.
You were seeing that kind of thing where, um, when it came time to, kind of decide what they were, like they made this definitive thing where it's like, I am this.
Yeah.
And every once in a while they would have like a come to Jesus moment. Whitney's got I Look to You. Aretha, we know she's done, multiple things in terms of gospel. You see some like Kelly Price, India Ari has done stuff, and they have like these moments, but rarely do you see, a total 180 where
Yeah.
they are going in a complete different direction, musically.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I appreciate, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on here is because even though you started as, the choir director who I met, and then became the gospel artist, you're now um more, I don't think your music is negative. I don't think it's like detrimental or anything like that. I don't think it has a negative message. But it isn't, Jesus, 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 God, God, God. You've got pop, you've got I would honestly probably, I think if I was to put you in a category, I would say you're like a pop artist now.
No,
more
absolutely.
more more of that pop inspirational kind of, you like going in that way. Elements of soul, and other genres in there, hip hop, R&B, all of that, kind of comes in together, but it's not what you were doing before.
Yeah.
And even though what you were doing had like in elements of other things, there was this key kind of, like you said, a box. that it was in. The gospel box can be very constricting for some people.
Mhm.
um so and even the ones that do break that box, it's not always well received, whether you're Tone or Ty Tribbett or Kirk Franklin. Those are anomalies.
Yeah,
And those are like, once in a generation people. It's not very easy for especially independent artists to break that box. Oftentimes just like, why are you trying to rock the boat?
yeah,
But having made the transition, one, you made it very successfully, I would say. And I have noticed how your I think you've had a greater impact musically. I think you've been able to do more, even in terms of, the music that you've been releasing. There's more stuff that's come out. There's more stuff that, it's like, before I have time to fully digest, one project, there's another one on the way. It's like, hold up, didn't you just drop a single? I'm
mhm.
still trying to process what I just heard. So I think that that's absolutely great. um so let me, I got supposed to be following these questions. I'm supposed to be following these questions. Let's ask some of these. I do want to certainly ask you some of these to see just some more stuff in terms of producing in a pandemic. um so first and foremost, you mentioned that you're not just a singer, but you're a singer songwriter. um how did you get into songwriting? Like, how did that become something that you do?
I think it started out just with my love of poetry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just grew up. I always loved poetry. I always loved English class. I always loved putting thoughts and words together and creating imagery. And I think it transitions well into songwriting. Like I I write the way that I want the world to explain things to me, and I'm a very visual learner. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
visual learner, and I'm a like tactile learner. Like I have to do it. And so with music, I write it in a way where you can visualize a scene in your head. Like when I'm explaining it to producers, or like if I explain it, I'm not about to say, like, hey, we're in this key, the meter is this, we're going to start here. I want it to be this broken down. I want sforzando here. I want crescendo. I want this here. I want accents on this part. I'm like, okay, so what I'm picturing is like middle of spring, look into the sky, and a plane comes by and you just lost somebody, and that plane is now representing your decline emotionally. And like if you're not a producer or a musician and you
Mm-hmm.
can't go there with me when I do that, then I'm normally not able to work with you. But like if you're able to get it and like work with me to transpose that in a way to like communicate it through music, because music is just a language. So we
Yeah.
should be able to go from one form of written language to another. So if I can write an essay, if I can write a report, I can write a poem, I can write a song. And that's literally what I do. As I write it the way that I want to say it, and then I kind of like clean it up along the way as I go.
All right. Tony Rosetta Stone Avery. All
Right.
right. No, that's all very important though, because music is a language, and I don't think people we say it. I think it's become a cliche, but it really truly is a language. And even the fact that you were able to communicate that effectively, in terms of, okay, well, sforzando, crescendo, accents here, stuff like that. Not everybody can speak that language. And I think it's helpful to be able to pull it out when you need to. I remember I had a conversation with a drummer for a song that I was producing, and he was like, "Yeah, can we like talk on the phone to like talk through the song?" I was like, "Okay, I haven't done this before, but let's try it." I was all nervous, but I was like, I did everything from beatboxing the song to explaining different types of patterns and things like that. Um, all of that just kind of came to effect. So it's important to be able to explain it from a visual standpoint, um, which is great, and it makes sense because you have these visual portions to your album. It makes sense when you say it like that. That that is how you're actually processing the music. Like that's how you're seeing it. That's you're visualizing it, and then you're just translating that into lyrics, melody, harmony, rhythm, all these things that make up songs.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so we're gonna do more of a lightning round. I feel like I've taken up a lot of your time. So we're gonna do more of a lightning round of questions. First and foremost, um, when you record, especially with the pandemic, did you have to do any kind of like, did you transition into recording at home, or were you able to find studios that you were able to still work with and stuff like that? What did you do when COVID came upon us?
Like most people in the world, I was stuck in the house and I had found producers, but of course, we went from like, oh yeah, we'll just push this back a couple weeks because this is going to be over soon to
Mm-hmm.
like this isn't over. So I was in my closet during the summer, sweating, dripping like gallons of sweat
Mm-hmm.
because I was recording in my house. I talked to this great producer. Um, that was able to actually was Song Builders studio, which I got connected to through William. So
Nice.
connected with Steven, and I told him I was like, listen, I'm not delaying this album till the end of this pandemic. So he told me everything to order. He actually would listen on a few sessions with me, and I had a couple other people. Leroy Hyson, who produced a lot of the beats for my first album and did a lot of the mixing and mastering. I went through Fiverr to find people to mix and master as engineers. So everything was at home. Everything was just done with just me and my little Shure microphone that someone told me to order, and
Mm-hmm.
we just did it.
I hear you. Look, it all comes in handy, and it all, like, a lot of it like is done through here. Like, I think we got this mic shortly before the pandemic, but a lot of stuff that I was doing, I do from home. I got my microphone back here. I'm gonna be recording vocals tonight, on this microphone. Um, but I think it's very helpful, for people to know that they can, do a quality recording at home. Like, you don't have to go to a studio. If you can, cool. If you can afford to, great. But if you can do it at home, that saves you a lot of time and money. Like, going to studio sessions can be expensive. Um,
Listen, that one home studio album got 10 times more streams than all four of my gospel albums combined.
wow.
Literally, my highest song on there, I think, is like at 40,000 streams right now. And this is for something that I sat in my room, in my closet, saying my own vocals because people couldn't visit people. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, everything was just me. I couldn't do all the original ideas that I wanted to do. Like, probably 10 years from now or something, I'll probably like remaster the album and like just see what happens if I go in the studio and do it. But like, yeah, like, don't let that stop you. Like, I tell the story all the time. Like, my most successful album is the one that I spent the least amount of money on and the least amount of time, because since it was just me, it's like I did it in like a month.
Yeah.
And like, even to now, it's still I mean, hopefully that changes with this next album, but I mean, up
Mm-hmm.
to this point, it's been my most successful album, and it's gotten a lot of attention. So like, that's like, it's all about the quality that you put into it. Like, just whatever you do, whether it takes a long time or a short amount of time, just don't hold yourself back. Just go for
Yeah. Yeah. No excuses. No limits.
it.
So since you are recording at home, what DAW are you using? What software are you using to record?
So I use Logic. I started out having experience with like virtual methods like Soundtrap and stuff like that, which still have their place, and I still appreciate what they do. I still recommend them to artists because they're great. But Logic is kind of where like I found my bread and butter. I started out with GarageBand, and I was like, I
Mm,
think we had this conversation where I was just like, yeah, I
yeah.
need a little bit more, and I just went ahead. Artists save money when you can, but when the investment is worth it, like, don't be afraid to pay and invest in yourself. And I paid for the full version of Logic, and like, it's helped me immensely since then. And so I use that Shure microphone, a MacBook that I got for free from work. So I don't even know if it's the
Mm,
right year of whatever to use, but I put everything together. And then YouTube was my friend, and I YouTubed videos on how to do everything until I got it done.
Look, YouTube University, don't sleep on it.
Exactly.
Even this podcast is going on YouTube, so do not sleep on that. So shoot, I don't even know why we didn't ask this question earlier, but who are some of your musical inspirations and influences?
Wow. Well, definitely I am inspired by performers. Because I always tell people every singer is not a performer. But I was always captivated by people who can do more than just sing, who can really command a stage. And I think that goes into my love of like acting and dancing. It's like, this brings everything together. So like I said, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, Usher, Mariah Carey, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, the list goes on, Prince. I was heavily influenced by those people who got up, like those people that you were going to see their full concerts. Even now, loving like the Bruno Mars types, Tajik Hall. I am always a fan of people who can put on a spectacle, even to the point I love like, I've really got into, I love what Chloe is doing right now. I love what Lil Nas X is doing right now. Like, I love what Lizzo does. Like, Lizzo and I must have gone to the same high school, because it's like, when I see her as an artist, I'm like, I get where you come from with that. Like, I get the personality that you have that became that. And I'm that person. Like, I grew up wanting to be on stage, not just wanting to have a good sounding album. I wanted to be out performing it, dancing, twirling, acting, emoting, all that stuff. So the artists who did that are the ones that have always really inspired me.
Okay. Follow-up question to that. If you could open for any artist, we'll go keep it to living artists. I was going to say living or dead, but if you could open for any artist who's alive today, who would it be?
Oh my God. Okay, it's cheating, but it's still a tie, because I would open up for Beyonce, because Beyonce, and I love, listen, just gets me. But also Tajik Hall, and that's because I get compared to Tajik Hall a lot, which as a person who grew up watching him on YouTube, I accept the compliment. Like, I love when people look at me and say, you remind me of somebody that influenced me, because it's like, good.
I mean, that just means that the comparison is, it speaks a lot in terms of how that person's influenced you and the impact that they've had on you. So
yeah. And for me, it also shows them that, it shows me that the thing that I love about music is seen in my music. Yeah. Like, if somebody was like, oh, you give me Aretha, you give me John Legend, like, which I've gotten compared to, and I love John Legend, one of my favorite vocalists. I love Aretha, all those different things are great, but like, getting complimented on doing what it is you actually intend on doing. Like, I love that people are like, no, we know when you come up, you're going to get a show. You're going to have production value, even if the budget was zero. You're going to have production value. Like, I appreciate that. Like, I'm a Pisces. I want to take you into the fantasy. So I appreciate that I'm successful at doing that.
Okay, cool. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so thankful and grateful to Tony for agreeing to do this, and just for sharing and being vulnerable in terms of his path, his journey, some of the hardships that he's dealt with when it comes to this sometimes lonely road of being an independent artist. I know for a fact, having seen some of it and just being his friend, that there are a lot of challenges, a lot of things that he's had to overcome and had to grow through in order to get to where he is at this point today. If you found any value in anything that Tony had to say, please go ahead and follow his social media. We've linked it so that you can go ahead and follow him on social media. Go ahead and check out his website as well, tonyaa.com, as well as his other endeavors, just to support him and everything that he's doing. If you found value in our podcast, you can also follow this podcast, Producing in a Pandemic, We're available on Google, Apple, and Spotify podcast platforms. You can also catch the video and watch that on Thursdays on YouTube just by looking up my channel, William Thompson Music. You can also search for the Producing in a Pandemic podcast, and it should come up as one of the first results as well. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, keep creating. Bye.